Hi, this is Miss Nikki the therapist. Welcome back to my channel where we discuss children's mental health, the impact of acculturation stress on immigrant communities, and insight into my perspective as a school-based therapist. I am returning from a long hiatus. In May, we observed Mental Health Awareness Month in our schools with lots of activities for students, teachers, and parents, and we provided them information about mental health awareness and why mental health is so important. And in June, we wrapped up the school year. And during that time, I was approached by my clients' parents about a question that they've been asking me. What is the best way for my kid to spend their summer break? And summer is here. Parents and caregivers most likely have planned their summer breaks for months in advance with sports, camps, and vacations. And some parents have not, and that's okay. You are not alone. Sometimes it's hard to know what you want to do over the summer, which is why I wanted to do an episode on this topic. What is the right approach to summer break activities? And the truth is, there is no one size that fits all, because kids and families and circumstances are all different. However, there are some important points that I want to share as a therapist with parents and teachers to keep in mind as they plan their child's summer break and ensuring that whatever plans they have in order, that it is optimal for their child's development, that it fosters growth and promotes self-care. And you might be wondering, can all those three things happen at the same time? Absolutely. It does take a little bit of planning and maintaining a balancing act, but it is absolutely doable. All right, here are some things that you should keep in mind. First thing is, kids thrive on structure and routine. The key to emotional stability for children is structure and routine. Children foster and grow best when their environments are stable, which is reinforced by routines and structures in place. Now, this doesn't mean that curveballs here and there don't happen. Having that daily structure and routine with room for last-minute changes allows for cognitive flexibility, emotion regulation, and improved problem solving. That stability then serves as a protective factor that will help them overcome adversities that come their way, and that fosters resiliency. So when they have that stable, consistent structure, then they're better able to deal with some of those curveballs that might come their way. The second thing is boredom leads to trouble. On the opposite end of routine and structure, the lack thereof is what leads to boredom. While it's good to have some downtime in the summer, long periods of time spent in boredom often pulls children towards things that are really good at attracting their attention to something that might not be best for them. That's excessive electronic use, access to inappropriate content. They might be exposed to information with nuances that is beyond their developmental capacity. Exposure to what is essentially brain rot content. And this decreases brain stimulation and weakens the neurodevelopment of the brain. It can also lead to more extreme maladaptive behaviors, such as engaging in risky behaviors like drug and alcohol use, unsafe sexual practices, or even getting in legal trouble. The third point is constant productivity is counterproductive, and self-care incorporation is essential. I would say in the summertime, about 4 to 6 hours of structured activity is optimal. Anything more than that is really counterintuitive because children also get stressed like adults because of their daily demands and responsibilities and need to incorporate self-care. It takes a lot fewer mental demands and responsibilities for children to experience stress. And that is true. Kids do start talking about chronic stress as young as 10 years old. And, they're often not taken seriously because they're always told that adults have it worse. Learning does not have to be academic. In fact, most of it is not. So we often associate the concept of learning with books, desks, classrooms, and a board that we're supposed to look at. And the reality is that only a fourth or 25% of children's learning occurs in a classroom setting. The other 3/4 or 75% actually occurs outside the classroom through interactive methods, observations, socialization, and even during their play. People tend to really discredit other forms of learning because it is not in that traditional academic setting. But many educational studies have proven time and time again that traditional classroom methods actually inhibit learning, and hands-on approaches, interactives, or something that we also call a Montessori style education, elicits the most learning and information retention in kids. All this to say, though, is when it comes to learning, we gotta flip the script. If you see my videos and posts about play, then you might have heard me say that play is valuable. Kids learn so much in different forms of play, and that type of learning allows them to be emotionally adjusted in society. Definitely check out my video and Instagram post about play to learn more. The last point before we take a little break is summer is a great opportunity for self-discovery and allowing children to explore their interests. So children develop and discover their interests as they get exposed to different activities around them. It is normal for a child to lose interest and gain interest frequently. It's a good sign that they're expanding their horizons and becoming a well-versed individual. When kids are younger, like in elementary school, it is the parents' role to expose the children to different experiences. This is how they discover what they like and don't like. It is important to listen to the child and provide opportunities for exploration when interest is expressed, but then also give them enough confidence that empowers them to try new things. And then by the time kids usually become adolescents, their interests are often more narrowed down. And in that case, as parents, you want to make sure that you're listening to your teen and giving them the opportunity to explore what they like and not necessarily what you want them to like. And after the break, we're going to discuss some challenges that parents might face in providing that optimal summer break for children and some of the things that we can do to overcome those hurdles. All right, we will be right back. Welcome back, listeners and viewers. Thank you for tuning in to learn more about the optimal summer break activities for kids and learning about some of the pointers that foster development, growth, and self-care. One of the greatest challenges that parents face often is camp is expensive. That's true, unfortunately. Summer camps on average are about $70 to $80 a day, about $150 to $200 a day for sleepover camps, which it comes about to like $500 a week for day camps, and overnight camps for a whole week can go up to $1 or $2 grand a week. And many families' realities are that summer camps are just outside of their budget. Me, myself, being an immigrant child, growing up in an immigrant household, and parents were working to make ends meet, it also kind of meant that we didn't do a lot of expensive camps and glamorous vacations. Those were also out of the cards for us. And sometimes that did make it hard for us to have the best summer breaks, which is also why we're talking about this in depth. Now, there are some things that we can still implement even though we're not going to camp. There are still ways that we can incorporate some of those points that are mentioned without paying this extensive money towards camp. And here are some things that we can implement. Let's talk about them. So the first point is, we talked about that no matter what the activity is, making sure that there is some form of structure and routine. Leaving kids to their own devices all day, this is so easy for parents to do. And I get why sometimes we might do this, but this is actually detrimental in the long term. Using electronic devices or gaming does have its time and place over summer break, but it really shouldn't consume the whole day and over multiple days. This does make them dependent on technology. It doesn't offer them enough brain stimulation to foster appropriate development. And then the removal of it can lead to intense emotion dysregulation, or as kids call it, crashing out. So the way that we can do it is we can set summer rituals, traditions, or something that happens at the same time each day that is working the child's different senses. And this can be going to the park, going fishing, reading, movie time, whatever it is. Just pick an activity that you can do on a regular basis and keep it consistent. The second point is allow the space and time for a child to discover and explore new opportunities, hobbies, and listen to what they want to explore. It's really easy to shut down ideas that children have when finances are a concern and when you realize that something can be financially expensive and what they're asking for costs a lot of money. Even if you know that it's not doable, your child doesn't know that. And then shutting it down right away will shut down their creativity, confidence, and the drive to want to try new things. Instead, a different approach would be discuss it with them and research it together. This provides quality time and an opportunity to teach them about how to best utilize online search tools. The conversation about it and the thought process also models critical thinking, which is basically how to interpret information you read online, how to apply it, and what are some things that you need to consider before starting something new. That process itself is a great learning opportunity. And I highly, highly recommend that this is done not just about summer camps, but about anything that your child might have an interest in. The third thing is that I want to really talk about is setting structure and routine is not the same as being a busybody. So make sure you carve out time regularly for self-care. So we have this understanding that children learn like sponges and they need to be exposed to as much learning as possible. Children do learn faster than adults. However, just like adults, they also get stressed by busy tasks and often need movement or mental breaks. Children learn self-care when they're young so that they can implement them effectively as more stressors get added onto their lives when they grow up and get an increase in their responsibilities. When kids don't learn self-care from a young age, it can lead to compassion fatigue and burnout. Even kids get burnt out too. I have come across kids, again, 9, 10 years old, they report being stressed, burnt out, and feeling so hopeless about their future. Learning needs to be balanced with breaks and leisure activities for it to be the most optimal. No matter what, make sure your child has the chance to learn something new or practice what they learned every day. Now remember, like we said earlier, learning does not have to be academic, and most of the learning children get is actually non-academic and learned through non-traditional academic means. So that can be practical life skills that can be learned through completing chores and tasks. Social emotional learning can be done through children's shows like Bluey that incorporate life lessons, socialization and play dates, meditation, and using sensory toys. Sports can be implemented through running around, being on the playground, playing catch, or spending the day at the pool. Arts can be implemented through listening to music, doing arts and crafts, drawing, coloring, and building. Science can be learned through gardening or going to the beach. And, children can learn something through most activities that engage all their senses. Sometimes we just have to get a little bit creative. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, and I wish all the viewers and listeners a summer full of fun, learning, self-care, and new discoveries. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content on children's mental health and working with children in immigrant families. If you have any interest in a particular topic about children's mental health, please feel free to mention them in the comments below or message me on my Instagram page at Miss Nikki the Therapist. Please also be sure to check out my Linktree account, and I have an Etsy shop where I sell merchandise to help support the online content that I create. That is all available on my Instagram bio, so please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe just for more information. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you guys all next time. This account is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and it does not replace or fulfill the full scope of therapy. The content on this video does not replace diagnosis, treatment, or other therapeutic interventions. Engaging with this content does not create a therapist-client relationship between you and the channel.